My name is Madison, I'm 34, and I own a $2.3 million commercial building in downtown Portland. Last month, I discovered my entire family had been using my property as their personal playground for 6 months, without asking, without paying, and definitely without permission. What I found when I walked into my own building that Tuesday morning shattered every assumption I had about family loyalty. My brother had given out keys like party favors, my sister was running an illegal Airbnb, and my parents, they knew everything and encouraged it, because family helps family. The confrontation that followed didn't just expose their entitlement, it revealed a decades-long pattern of exploitation that would cost them everything they thought they deserved from me. Before we dive into this family betrayal nightmare, I'm curious, where are you watching from today? If you're ready for a story about family karma hitting harder than a freight train, smash that like button and subscribe, because this revenge tale is going to take some wild turns. Trust me, by the end of this, you'll never look at family first the same way again. Let's get into how my own blood relatives learned that stealing from me was the biggest mistake of their lives. 6 months ago, I bought this building with money from selling my tech startup. It was supposed to be my retirement investment, a beautiful 1,920 seconds brick building with retail space on the ground floor and loft apartments upstairs. I'd been living in Seattle, managing the renovation remotely through contractors planning to move back to Portland once everything was finished. The building was my pride and joy. 3 floors, exposed brick walls, original hardwood floors that gleamed like honey under the vintage light fixtures I'd carefully selected. The ground floor was designed for a boutique coffee shop with floor-to-ceiling windows that flooded the space with natural light. The second floor had 2 luxury loft apartments, and the third floor was going to be my personal penthouse, my reward for 15 years of building and selling businesses. I'd trusted my younger brother Jake to oversee the final stages of renovation. He was unemployed again, living with our parents at 29, and I thought giving him responsibility might help him get his life together. He had keys, knew the security codes, and was supposed to check on the contractor's work twice a week. Simple job, good pay. What could go wrong? Everything, apparently. I decided to surprise everyone by flying in early for my final walkthrough. The plan was to see the completed renovation, then announce to the family that I was moving back to Portland. I had this whole romantic vision of taking my parents and siblings through my beautiful building, showing them what their successful daughter had accomplished. That Tuesday morning in October, I pulled up to my building around 8 a.m. The first red flag was the cars parked outside a beat-up Honda Civic I didn't recognize and my sister, Emma's white Jeep. Why would Emma be here? She lived 40 minutes away in Beaverton and had never shown interest in my business investments. I used my key to enter through the main entrance and immediately heard voices and laughter echoing from upstairs. Not contractor voices, familiar voices, family voices. The ground floor looked perfect, exactly as I'd specified. The contractors had outdone themselves. But there were takeout containers on the custom marble countertop, beer bottles on my handmade oak tables, and someone had left muddy footprints on the pristine floors I'd paid extra to have professionally cleaned. As I climbed the stairs to the second floor, the voices got clearer. I heard Jake's laugh, Emma's voice complaining about something, and then a voice I didn't recognize, a man's voice. When I reached the second floor landing, I stopped dead. The door to apartment 2A was wide open. Inside, I could see Emma setting up what looked like a professional photography setup ring. Lights, a backdrop, and a camera on a tripod. The man I didn't recognize was arranging furniture while Jake sat on my custom Italian leather sofa feet, up on my glass coffee table eating cereal from my dishes. "Jake," I called out, stepping into the doorway. 3 heads snapped toward me. Jake's spoon clattered into his bowl. Emma's face went ghost white. The stranger looked confused, glancing between all of us like he'd walked into a family intervention. Matty Jake scrambled to his feet, sloshing milk onto the sofa. "What are you doing here? I thought you weren't coming until next month." "What am I doing here?" My voice was dangerously quiet. "In my own building that I own, Jake, I wonder." Emma stepped forward, and I noticed she was wearing one of those ring light headbands that influencers use. "Madison, I can explain. You can explain why you're in my building with professional photography equipment. You can explain why Jake is eating breakfast on furniture I haven't even seen in person yet." The stranger cleared his throat. I'm going to wait outside." He grabbed what looked like a lighting kit and hurried past me. Who was that? I demanded. Jake and Emma exchanged a look that made my stomach drop, that guilty caught red-handed look that took me back to childhood when they'd team up to break something and then lie about it. Madison, sit down, Emma said. Let us explain. I'll stand. Start talking. Jake ran his hands through his hair, a nervous tic he'd had since childhood. Okay, so you know how you said the building was just sitting empty while the renovations finished, and you know how I've been struggling to find work. Get to the point, Jake. I've been staying here. Just temporarily, and Emma needed a space for her photography business. Her what now? Emma jumped in. I started a boudoir photography business. I needed a space that looked upscale but didn't cost upscale prices. Jake said, you wouldn't mind if I used the apartment for a few shoots. My hands were shaking. You started a business. In my building, without asking me. We were going to tell you, Jake said quickly. But you were so busy with your Seattle life, and it seemed like such a small thing. Small thing, my voice was getting louder. You gave my sister keys to run a business in property I own while you're living here rent-free, and you think that's a small thing. Technically, Emma said, and I could tell she was trying to sound reasonable. I'm not running a business here. I'm just using the space occasionally. I walked over to the window and saw a sign in the yard that made my blood pressure spike. Emma. What does that sign say? She didn't answer. Read it to me. Luna Boudoir Photography. She mumbled. Professional intimate portraits in a luxury setting. You put up a business sign. On my property. Without my permission. The silence stretched until I heard footsteps on the stairs. Heavy footsteps that sounded familiar. Jake, Emma, everything okay up there? Dad's voice. My father appeared in the doorway carrying a toolbox and wearing work clothes. When he saw me, his face went through several emotions, surprise, guilt, and then something that looked almost like defiance. Madison, sweetheart, what a wonderful surprise. Dad, my voice was flat. What are you doing here? Oh well, Jake mentioned the building needed some touch-up work, and you know how I like to stay busy in retirement. I've been helping out with a few projects. What projects? Dad shifted uncomfortably. Just some minor electrical work. Installing some extra outlets for Emma's equipment. Nothing major. I felt like the floor was disappearing under my feet. You've been doing construction work in my building without my knowledge or permission. Now, sweetheart, don't get upset. It's all family. We're helping each other out. Where's Mom? Another guilty look between the three of them. She's upstairs, Dad finally admitted. I headed for the stairs to the third floor, my future home. The penthouse that was supposed to be my private sanctuary. What I found up there broke something fundamental inside me about trust and family. The third floor was supposed to be my penthouse. Instead, I found my mother hosting what looked like a weekly book club meeting. 8 women I'd never seen before sat in a circle on folding chairs, drinking coffee from paper cups, discussing what appeared to be a romance novel. My custom kitchen island was covered with homemade cookies and pastries. My imported German appliances were being used to brew coffee for strangers. Madison, Mom jumped up, nearly spilling her coffee. Girls, this is my daughter, the one I told you about, who owns this beautiful building. 8 pairs of curious eyes turned to me. One woman who looked to be in her 60s with perfectly coiffed silver hair smiled warmly. Oh, your mother talks about you constantly, such a successful young woman. We're so grateful you let us use this gorgeous space for our meetings. Let them use it, let them, Mom, I said, carefully. Can I speak with you privately? Of course, sweetheart. Ladies, why don't you take a little break? There are some lovely shops down the street you might want to browse. As the women gathered their purses and filed out chattering about how lovely the space was, Mom started tidying up with the casual efficiency of someone who'd done this many times before. How long? I asked when we were alone. How long? What, dear? How long have you been hosting book club in my building? Mom sighed the way she always did when she thought I was being unreasonable. About 4 months. Madison, you have to understand the community center where we used to meet started charging rental fees, and most of us are on fixed incomes. When Jake mentioned you had this beautiful empty space just sitting here. Just sitting here, Mom, this isn't empty space. This is my home. My future home. But you're not living here yet, she said, as if that made everything perfectly reasonable. And family helps family. That phrase, I was getting sick of hearing it. What else? I asked. What do you mean, Mom? What else is going on in my building that I don't know about? She hesitated just long enough to confirm my worst fears. Well, your cousin Ryan has been storing some things in the basement. What things? Just some merchandise for his online business. He needed climate-controlled storage and couldn't afford one of those fancy storage units. My building had a beautiful finished basement that I'd planned to turn into a home gym and media room. What kind of merchandise? Oh, I don't really know. Computer parts, I think. Electronics. I was starting to feel like I was in some bizarre alternate reality. Anyone else? Emma's been letting her friend Sarah use apartment 2B for photography shoots too. But only occasionally. And they always clean up afterward. So, Emma is running a full photography business out of my building. Jake is living here rent-free. You're hosting events. Ryan is using it for storage. And Dad is doing unauthorized construction work. When you put it like that, it sounds worse than it is. Mom, it sounds exactly like what it is. My family has taken over my building without asking me. Madison, you're being dramatic. We're not hurting anything. And it's not like you're losing money, the building was just sitting empty anyway. That attitude, that casual dismissal of my property rights, triggered something deep and angry inside me. I need to see everything I said. We went back downstairs, where Jake and Emma were having what looked like an intense whispered conversation with Dad. They all looked guilty when they saw me coming. Show me apartment 2B, I demanded. Emma reluctantly led me across the hall and unlocked the door. Inside, I found a fully equipped photography studio. Professional lighting backdrops, props, a changing area with privacy screens, and a makeup station with a Hollywood-style vanity mirror. Emma, I said slowly, this looks like a permanent setup. It's not permanent, we can take it down any time. How long has this been here? About 3 months, and you've been charging clients to use my space for 3 months. I've been splitting the profits with Jake. He's been managing bookings and keeping the space clean. I turned to Jake. You've been managing bookings, just helping out, he mumbled. Jake, are you taking money from people to use my property? It's not like that. Answer the question. I get a small fee for coordinating schedules and stuff. I felt like I was discovering a whole secret life that my family had built inside my investment. What else? What other surprises are waiting for me? Dad cleared his throat. Well, since you're asking, Ryan's been paying me to install some security equipment for his storage operation. Security equipment, cameras, motion sensors, an alarm system. All top-quality stuff. Dad, you installed a security system in my building without telling me. Ryan insisted on it for insurance purposes. He's storing some valuable electronics down there. I was starting to understand that this wasn't just casual family boundary crossing. This was systematic exploitation disguised as family help. I want to see the basement. Now. The basement was unrecognizable. What had been an empty space with concrete floors was now lined with metal shelving units filled with boxes labeled with product codes. There was a desk with a computer setup, a security monitor showing feeds from multiple cameras, and what looked like a small office area with filing cabinets. Jesus Christ, I whispered. Ryan's really turned it into something professional, Dad said, sounding proud. He's making good money with his electronics resale business. His electronics resale business. In my basement. Madison, you're acting like we committed some kind of crime, Emma said. We're family. We're supposed to help each other. Help each other. I turned to face all three of them. Let me get this straight. Jake, you're living rent-free in a luxury apartment that I spent $50,000 to renovate. Emma, you're running a photography business that you're charging clients for using space I own. Dad, you're doing paid construction work for a business operating out of my property without my knowledge. Mom is hosting events here, and Ryan has essentially turned my basement into his warehouse and office. When you list it all out like that, Jake started, it sounds like exactly what it is I finished. You've all been profiting from my property while I've been paying the mortgage, insurance, and utilities. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Emma said something that made me realize this situation was even worse than I thought. Madison, we just assumed you'd be okay with it. You have so much money and the building was just sitting empty. We didn't think you'd mind sharing. Sharing. Like my $2.3 million investment was a toy they could all play with. That's when I knew this wasn't going to end with a family discussion and some boundaries. This was war. The assumption that I'd just roll over because we're family was their first mistake. Their second mistake was underestimating exactly how ruthless I could be when people tried to steal from me. I left the building that day without saying another word. But I didn't go home. I went straight to my lawyer's office. Patricia Hernandez had been my attorney for 8 years, handling everything from business acquisitions to contract negotiations. She was brilliant, thorough, and had zero tolerance for family drama interfering with legal reality. "Madison," she said after I explained the situation, "this is actually more serious than simple trespassing. Your brother has been acting as an unauthorized property manager. Your sister is running a business without proper licensing or insurance. Your father has been doing unpermitted electrical work. And your cousin is operating what sounds like a commercial warehouse operation in a residential building." She pulled up the building codes on her computer. "None of this is legal. Your insurance policy probably doesn't cover commercial photography, unlicensed construction, or warehouse operations. If someone gets hurt during one of your sister's photo shoots, or if Ryan's electronics somehow cause a fire, you could lose everything. What are my options? Legally, you could have them all arrested for trespassing and theft. Practically, that would destroy your family relationships. Pat, they've been stealing from me for months. They've turned my building into their personal money-making scheme without my permission. At this point, I'm not sure those relationships are worth preserving." She leaned back in her chair. "There is a third option, something that would be completely legal, probably effective, and definitely memorable. I'm listening. Your family seems to think they have some kind of claim to your property. What if we let them continue thinking that, until we can demonstrate otherwise in the most dramatic way possible?" Patricia's plan was beautiful in its simplicity and devastating in its execution. First, we documented everything. I hired a private investigator to take photos and video of all the unauthorized activities in my building. We photographed Emma's business setup, Ryan's storage operation, the unauthorized electrical work, everything. We documented Jake living in the apartment mom's book club meetings, and even got copies of Emma's business advertising that listed my address. Next, we researched the legal requirements they were violating. Emma needed a business license, liability, insurance, and proper zoning permits to run a photography studio. Ryan needed commercial permits for his storage and resale operation. Dad needed electrical permits for all his work. None of them had any of these things. Then came the fun part. I called Jake and asked him to organize a family dinner at the building. "I want to see everyone together," I told him. "I've been thinking about what you all said, and maybe you're right. Maybe I have been too focused on the business side of things. I want to talk about how we can make this work for everyone." Jake was so relieved he almost cried. "Maddie, that's amazing. I knew you'd come around. Family is more important than paperwork, right?" "Right," I agreed. "Let's plan something special. This Saturday evening. Tell everyone to bring their favorite dishes. We'll make it a real celebration." For the rest of the week, I played the part of the reformed sister who'd seen the error of her ways. I texted Emma asking about her photography business, expressing interest in her success. I called Dad to thank him for taking such good care of the building. I even reached out to Ryan to congratulate him on his entrepreneurial spirit. They all bought it completely. Saturday evening arrived and I drove to the building with a trunk full of groceries and what looked like party supplies. Really, it was Patricia and 3 other lawyers, plus a representative from the city planning office, all hiding in unmarked cars around the block. The family dinner was perfect. Everyone was there: Mom, Dad, Jake, Emma, Ryan, even Emma's friend Sarah, who'd apparently been using apartment 2B regularly. They decorated the ground floor with balloons and streamers, set up a long table using sawhorses and plywood, and created what honestly looked like a lovely family gathering. Mom had made her famous lasagna. Dad brought homemade wine. Emma had created a photo display showcasing some of her work from the building, which she proudly showed me like I should be honored that my property had been part of her portfolio. Ryan gave me a tour of his basement operation, explaining how he'd organized everything for maximum efficiency. He showed me his sales records, proudly announcing that he'd made $30 0 inches profit over the past 4 months, thanks to having such great rent-free storage. Jake presented me with a folder full of improvements he'd made to the building. A detailed list of everything from new locks to minor repairs, presented like he was some kind of property management hero. Madison, Mom said as we all sat down to eat, "I'm so proud of how you've handled this. It takes real maturity to admit when you've been too rigid about business matters." "You're absolutely right, Mom," I said, raising my glass of Dad's wine. I've learned a lot about family this week. We toasted to family values and supporting each other. Everyone was relaxed, happy, and completely unsuspecting. That's when I excused myself to get dessert from the car. Instead, I texted Patricia, "It's time." Let me pause here for a second because I know some of you are probably thinking this is getting intense. You know what, it absolutely is. But sometimes family pushes you too far and you have to push back twice as hard. Stick with me because the next part, the actual eviction, is going to blow your mind. Trust me, the look on their faces when they realized what was happening. It was priceless. When I walked back into my building, I wasn't alone. Patricia entered with me, followed by Officer Martinez from the Portland Police, Inspector Chen from the City Planning Office, and Detective Rodriguez, who specialized in fraud cases. The conversation at the family dinner table died immediately. Everyone stared at the official-looking entourage that had just walked into what they thought was their safe family space. "What's going on?" Dad asked, standing up slowly. "Everyone, I'd like you to meet my attorney, Patricia Hernandez," I said calmly. "Officer Martinez, Inspector Chen, and Detective Rodriguez." Jake's face went white. Emma grabbed Sarah's arm. Ryan looked like he was calculating the distance to the back exit. Patricia stepped forward with a briefcase full of documents. "Good evening, everyone. Miss Walker has asked us to address some legal issues regarding the unauthorized use of this commercial property." Legal issues? Mom's voice was shaky. "Madison, what's happening?" I sat down at the head of the table directly across from where Mom was seated. "What's happening is that my family has been operating multiple illegal businesses on my property without permits, without insurance, and without my permission." "But you said," Jake started. I said I wanted to see how we could make this work for everyone. And we can. You can all get proper permits, proper insurance, sign proper leases, and pay proper rent. Or you can all get out of my building, tonight. Inspector Chen opened his folder. "I've documented multiple zoning violations. This building is zoned for light commercial and residential use, but you're operating an unpermitted photography studio, an unpermitted electronics storage and distribution center, and an unpermitted event space." Detective Rodriguez addressed Ryan directly. "Mr. Walker, we've reviewed your sales records. You're operating a commercial resale business without proper licensing. The IRS will be interested in your tax filings for this income." Ryan's jaw dropped. "How do you, Madison? You went through my business records." "Ryan, you left your business records in my building. My building, my property." Officer Martinez pulled out his notebook. "Jake Walker, you've been residing at this address for approximately 6 months without a lease agreement and without the property owner's explicit consent. That constitutes criminal trespassing." "But I'm her brother," Jake protested. "Family relationships don't override property law," Patricia said matter-of-factly. Emma was crying now. "Madison, you're destroying our family over a stupid building." "Emma, I'm not destroying anything. You all chose to steal from me. I'm just enforcing the consequences." Inspector Chen continued reading violations. Unpermitted electrical work, fire code violations in the basement, storage area occupancy violations for events held without proper permits. Each violation carries a fine, Patricia added. The total comes to approximately $47,000. The number hung in the air like a bomb. Dad found his voice. "Madison, sweetheart, surely we can work something out. We're family. Here's what we're going to work out," I said, standing up. "Everyone has 30 minutes to remove their personal belongings from my building. All business equipment, inventory, and installations stay here. They're forfeit for 6 months of unauthorized use." "You can't just take our stuff," Emma shouted. "Actually, she can," Patricia said. "Unauthorized installation of equipment on someone else's property transfers ownership to the property owner. It's called fixtures law." Sarah, who'd been silent this whole time, finally spoke up. "Emma, I think we should go." "Sarah's smart," I said. "Sarah understands that this situation is over." Ryan stepped forward, and for a moment I thought he might try to argue or negotiate. Instead, he said, "Madison, this is fucked up even for you." "What's fucked up, Ryan, is that my family stole from me for months and then acted like I was unreasonable for caring about it." Officer Martinez checked his watch. 28 minutes remaining. What followed was chaos. Jake ran upstairs to pack whatever he could fit in garbage bags. Emma and Sarah frantically tried to dismantle the most expensive photography equipment. Ryan headed to the basement, probably hoping to grab his most valuable inventory. Dad and Mom just sat at the table looking shell-shocked. Madison, Mom said quietly, "How can you do this to your own family?" I sat back down across from her. "Mom, let me ask you something. If strangers had moved into my building, started businesses without permission, lived there rent-free and made money off my property, what would you tell me to do? That's different. Those would be strangers." "No, Mom, it's exactly the same. The only difference is that you expected me to accept it because we share DNA. Blood is thicker than water," Dad said. "Actually, Dad, the full saying is, the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. It means relationships you choose are stronger than relationships you're born into. You all chose to betray my trust. I'm choosing to enforce my boundaries." Patricia checked her watch. 15 minutes. The scramble intensified. Jake was crying as he packed, realizing he was about to be homeless again. Emma kept trying to negotiate for just one more day to properly pack her equipment. Ryan emerged from the basement with a single box, his face dark with rage. "This isn't over," he said to me as he passed. "Yes, it is," I replied. "And if you come back here without permission, you'll be arrested for trespassing." When the 30 minutes were up, Officer Martinez did a final walkthrough to ensure everyone was out. The building felt eerily quiet after all the chaos. Patricia handed me a new set of locks and security codes. "I recommend changing everything tomorrow. Also consider installing a proper security system with cameras at all entry points." "Already planned," I said. As the officials left, I stood alone in my building for the first time in months. The ground floor was trashed from the hasty packing and removal process. There were holes in the walls where Ryan had installed shelving. Emma's lighting had left scuff marks on the hardwood floors. But it was mine again. I walked through each floor, cataloging the damage and planning repairs. When I reached the 3rd floor, my penthouse, I found something that broke my heart. Mom had left a framed photo on the kitchen counter. It was from my college graduation, showing our whole family smiling together. On the back she'd written, "Madison, we're so proud of you. Love always, Mom." For the first time since this whole nightmare started, I cried. The next few weeks were brutal. My phone rang constantly, family members calling to yell, cry, threaten, or beg. I stopped answering after the first day. The voicemails were enlightening though. Jake left 17 messages, ranging from apologetic, to furious, to desperate. In one particularly revealing ramble, he admitted that he'd been telling people he managed my building, and had been implying to friends that he was some kind of successful property developer. Emma's messages focused on the financial impact. Apparently, she'd been booking photography sessions 6 weeks in advance, and now had to cancel all of them. She was facing potential lawsuits from clients who'd paid deposits for shoots in her luxury studio space. Ryan's single voicemail was short and threatening, "You better watch your back, Madison. Family remembers." But it was Mom's message that really got to me. She called crying, saying she didn't understand how I could be so cruel to people who loved me. She said the book club ladies were devastated that they couldn't meet in their beautiful space anymore, and that several of them had been asking when they could come back. The entitlement was breathtaking. Even after being legally evicted, they somehow still thought they had rights to my property. 2 weeks after the eviction, I got a call from my cousin Lisa, Ryan's sister, who I'd always liked. She'd stayed out of family drama and had built a successful marketing career in Seattle. "Madison," she said, "I need to tell you something about what's been going on." We met for coffee in a neutral location, and Lisa dropped a bombshell that recontextualized everything. "This wasn't opportunistic," she said. "This was planned." "What do you mean?" "I mean, Ryan came to me 8 months ago asking about your building. He wanted to know the exact address, the square footage, whether you were planning to live there yourself. When I asked why, he said the family was thinking about helping you utilize the space more efficiently." My blood ran cold. 8 months ago, before I even finished buying it. Yes. And Madison, there's more. Jake called me in July, asking if I knew anything about landlord-tenant law. He was specifically asking about squatters' rights, and how long someone had to live somewhere before they could claim residency. Squatters' rights. He was researching whether he could establish legal residency by living there long enough. "Madison, I think they were planning to claim ownership rights to your building." The coffee shop suddenly felt too small, too warm. "That's impossible. You can't just steal someone's building." Actually, you can under certain circumstances. It's called adverse possession. If someone lives on a property openly, continuously, and exclusively for a certain period, usually 7 to 10 years depending on the state, they can sometimes claim legal ownership. I felt sick. Lisa, are you saying my family was planning to steal my building? I'm saying Ryan was definitely researching it. And Jake was asking very specific questions about establishing residency. Madison, I think the plan was for Jake to live there long enough to claim squatters' rights, while Ryan established a business presence that would be expensive for you to evict. What about Emma and my parents? I think they were just useful idiots. Ryan and Jake probably convinced them it was all harmless family sharing, while they were actually building a legal case for adverse possession. Everything suddenly made horrible sense. Jake's insistence that he was managing the property. Ryan's elaborate security system and detailed business records. The way they'd all acted like they had some inherent right to be there. They hadn't just been taking advantage of my generosity. They'd been systematically positioning themselves to steal my entire investment. That evening I called Patricia and explained Lisa's revelations. She was quiet for a long moment after I finished. Madison, that's actually brilliant in a psychopathic way. If they'd succeeded in establishing continuous residence and business operations for several more years, they might have had a legitimate adverse possession claim. What would that have meant? Potentially, they could have sued for legal ownership of your building. At minimum, they could have made it incredibly expensive and time-consuming for you to evict them. I was furious all over again, but this time the anger was mixed with something else, genuine fear. I'd thought my family was just selfish and entitled. I hadn't realized they were actually trying to steal from me on a massive scale. Patricia, I want to go after them, all of them. For what? Conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted theft, whatever we can make stick. Patricia was quiet again. Madison, I understand your anger. But proving conspiracy would be difficult, and it would be incredibly expensive to prosecute. Also, they're your family. Are you sure you want to destroy those relationships permanently? Those relationships were destroyed the moment they decided to steal from me. But even as I said it, I wasn't sure I meant it. Despite everything, the idea of sending my parents to jail made me feel sick. Let me think about it, I told her. That night I walked through my building again, trying to process everything I'd learned. The damage was worse than I'd initially realized. Ryan's basement installation had required drilling through load-bearing walls. Dad's electrical work wasn't just unpermitted, some of it was dangerous with exposed wiring and overloaded circuits. The photography setup had left permanent marks on the hardwood floors and walls. Jake had somehow managed to stain the marble countertops and damage the custom bathroom fixtures. But as I stood in the ruins of my dream penthouse, I realized something important: they'd failed. For all their planning and scheming, for all their research into adverse possession and squatters' rights, they'd underestimated one crucial factor: me. They'd assumed I was too soft, too focused on family harmony, too generous to enforce my own property rights. They'd counted on me rolling over and accepting their exploitation because family helps family. They'd been wrong. And now, as I planned my next move, I realized their failure was about to become much more expensive than just losing access to my building. Because Lisa had given me an idea for the perfect revenge, one that would hit them where it hurt most, and ensure they never tried something like this again. Lisa's revelation about the adverse possession plot changed everything. This wasn't just family taking advantage, this was premeditated theft, and if they wanted to play legal games, I was going to win. I spent the next month quietly building my case. Patricia helped me document the conspiracy angle, gathering evidence of Jake and Ryan's research into squatters' rights and adverse possession. We subpoenaed Jake's internet search history and found months of searches for how to claim abandoned property squatter rights Oregon and adverse possession laws. Ryan had been even sloppier. His business laptop, which he'd abandoned in his rush to leave, contained detailed spreadsheets calculating the potential value he could claim from my building over time. He literally created a business plan for stealing my property. But the smoking gun came from an unexpected source: Emma's photography client contracts. When Emma had hastily canceled her bookings, several angry clients had contacted me directly, demanding their deposits back. One of them forwarded me her original contract with Emma's photography business. The contract listed the building address and described the space as our luxury studio facility. Not Emma's facility, our facility. She'd been advertising shared ownership of my building to attract high-paying clients. Patricia was fascinated. This demonstrates clear fraudulent misrepresentation. She was advertising ownership rights she didn't have to induce people to pay premium prices. What can we do with that? We can sue her for fraud. And if we can prove Jake and Ryan were aware of her false advertising, we can include them in a conspiracy charge. The pieces were coming together beautifully. But I wanted more than just legal victory. I wanted them to understand exactly how their greed had backfired. 3 months after the eviction, I hosted my own party at the building. Not a family dinner, a grand reopening celebration for the legitimate businesses I was installing. I'd leased the ground floor to an upscale coffee roastery owned by 2 women who'd been looking for the perfect downtown location. The second-floor apartments were rented to young professionals who actually paid their rent on time. The third floor remained my private residence, finally completed the way I'd originally envisioned. I invited everyone I could think of, business associates, college friends, neighbors, even Lisa and a few other family members who'd stayed out of the drama. I also invited the photography clients Emma had screwed over, offering them free professional headshots as an apology for their terrible experience with my former tenant. The party was perfect. The building looked stunning, filled with people who actually belonged there. The coffee roastery owners were charming hosts, serving amazing drinks and creating the warm, welcoming atmosphere I'd always imagined for the space. Around 8 p.m., as the party was winding down, Jake showed up. He looked terrible, unshaven, wearing clothes that had seen better days, with the desperate look of someone who'd been living in his car. Which, according to Lisa, he had been. "Madison," he said, approaching me carefully, "can we talk?" Several people nearby turned to watch, sensing drama. I gestured toward a quieter corner. "What do you want, Jake? I need help. I've been sleeping in my car for 2 months. I can't find an apartment because I don't have rental references or a job. I was wondering, maybe I could stay in the building again, just temporarily, until I get back on my feet." The audacity was breathtaking. "Jake, you tried to steal my building." "That's not, I never tried to steal anything. I was just staying there. You were researching adverse possession laws. You were planning to claim squatters' rights." His face went pale. "Who told you that?" "Does it matter, Jake? You and Ryan and Emma conspired to defraud me. The only reason you're not in jail is because prosecuting family would have been emotionally exhausting for me. Madison, please. I'm desperate. You should have thought about that before you decided to betray me." He started crying right there in front of my guests. Not quiet tears, loud, ugly sobbing that drew everyone's attention. "I'm sorry," he wailed. "I'm so sorry. I was stupid and desperate, and Ryan convinced me it would be okay. Please, Madison, I'll do anything. I'll pay rent, I'll sign whatever lease you want, I'll work for free to make up for the damage." "Jake, stop." But he didn't stop. He dropped to his knees, actually begging, creating a scene that was both heartbreaking and humiliating. "Please don't let me be homeless. I can't live in my car anymore. I can't keep showering at the gym and pretending I have somewhere to go. Please, Madison, I'm your brother." The room was dead silent except for Jake's sobbing. All my guests were staring, and I could see pity and confusion on their faces. They were wondering what kind of person would let their brother be homeless. For a moment I almost wavered. The family guilt was strong even after everything. Then I remembered Ryan's spreadsheets calculating how much of my building he could steal. I remembered Emma's fraudulent contracts. I remembered months of them profiting from my property while I paid all the bills. "Jake," I said clearly, loud enough for everyone to hear, "I offered you a legitimate job overseeing the renovations. Instead, you chose to conspire with Ryan and Emma to steal my building through adverse possession. You researched squatters' rights. You helped Emma defraud her clients by advertising false ownership of my property. You knew exactly what you were doing. That's not, I have your browser history, Jake. I have Ryan's business plans. I have Emma's fraudulent contracts. I know everything." Jake's sobbing got quieter, more defeated. "You're not homeless because I'm cruel," I continued. "You're homeless because you chose to steal from someone who would have helped you legitimately. You're homeless because you burned the bridge with the one family member who had the resources to support you." I knelt down to his level, speaking quietly so only he could hear. And Jake, if you ever come to my building again, if you ever contact me again, if you ever try to manipulate me with tears and guilt again, I will prosecute you for conspiracy to commit fraud. Do you understand me? He nodded, still crying. Now get out. Jake left and the party gradually resumed. But the mood had changed. People were asking questions, wanting to know the full story. So I told them. I explained how my family had systematically exploited my generosity, turned my investment into their personal profit center, and planned to steal the entire building through adverse possession. The reaction was overwhelmingly supportive. Several people shared their own stories of family members who'd taken advantage of their success. Others expressed amazement that I'd handled the situation so legally and thoroughly. One woman, a successful entrepreneur in her 50s, pulled me aside later. Madison, she said, I want you to know how impressive this is. Most people would have just accepted the family guilt and let themselves be robbed. You protected yourself and your investment while still giving them every legal opportunity to make things right. That takes real strength. As the last guests left and I stood alone in my beautiful, legitimately occupied building, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. My phone buzzed with a text from Lisa. Jake called me. He told me what happened tonight. Madison, I'm proud of you. Family isn't supposed to steal from family. 6 months later, I found out through the family grapevine that Emma's photography business had failed completely. She couldn't afford to rent legitimate studio space, and her reputation was ruined by the canceled bookings and fraud allegations. She'd moved back in with our parents and was working retail. Ryan had been audited by the IRS for his unreported income and owed thousands in back taxes and penalties. His electronics business collapsed, and he was working construction jobs to pay off his debts. Jake had eventually found a job and a studio apartment, but he was still struggling financially and had developed a drinking problem. Mom and Dad had stopped speaking to me entirely, choosing to support their other children despite knowing the truth about the conspiracy. And me, I was thriving. My building was profitable, my tenants were wonderful, and I'd learned an invaluable lesson about the difference between family loyalty and enabling theft. The coffee roastery downstairs makes the best lattes in Portland. My penthouse apartment is everything I dreamed it would be. And every morning when I wake up in my own home, in my own building, surrounded by people who respect my boundaries and pay their rent on time, I remember why standing up for yourself is always worth it. So here's my question for all of you watching. Have you ever had family members who thought blood relation gave them the right to take advantage of you? How do you handle that balance between family loyalty and protecting yourself from people who would exploit your success? I want to hear your stories in the comments. Have you ever had to choose between family harmony and your own financial security? What would you have done in my situation? Let me know. And while you're down there, hit that like button if you think my family got exactly what they deserved. If you enjoyed this tale of family karma and justice served cold, make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell. I've got more stories about standing up to entitled relatives, workplace revenge that actually worked, and the sweet satisfaction of consequences, finally catching up with people who thought they were untouchable. Thank you for watching, and remember, family loyalty doesn't mean letting people steal from you. Sometimes the best thing you can do for entitled relatives is show them that actions have consequences. Until next time, protect your boundaries, trust your instincts, and never let anyone convince you that blood relation is an excuse for exploitation.